Hello and welcome to TVC News. I am Esther Makwarigala. We begin with the Israel-Iran conflict, where a ceasefire between both countries appears to be holding today, despite yesterday's violation of the peace effort by the warring nations. Initial assessment by the United States Military Intelligence Agency says the U.S. strikes on 3 nuclear facilities in Iran didn't destroy the core components of its nuclear program. President Donald Trump says the intelligence is inconclusive and preliminary.
A Pentagon intelligence assessment of the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities says they did not destroy the country's nuclear program and probably only set it back by some months. The White House says it is a wrong assessment, leaked by, quote, a low-level loser in the intelligence community, end quote. President Donald Trump again declared the nuclear site in Iran completely destroyed and accused the media of an attempt to demean one of the most successful military strikes in history.
It was a virtual obliteration. When you take a look at the ground above, don't forget the flame is all underground. But everything above, if you look at the before and the after picture, everything above is burned black. The trees, everything. There's one building, but that's a building that sunk substantially into the granite, so that, you know, the fire goes right over it. I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast.
The U.S. has 18 intelligence agencies, which sometimes produce conflicting reports based on their missions and areas of expertise. Last week, Saturday, the U.S. struck 3 nuclear facilities in Iran with bunker buster bombs capable of penetrating 60 feet of concrete of earth before exploding. President Trump says he remains opposed to Iran proliferating nuclear weapons, and he will not take chances with permitting such for security reasons. After striking Iran, the U.S. issued security advisories to its citizens across some countries to ensure their safety. The Israeli Prime Minister, who President Trump condemned yesterday for Israel's strike against Iran after a ceasefire deal, has thanked Mr. Trump for his mediation effort. But Iran says it will only stay away from striking Israel when Israel stops attacking its territory.
All NATO Secretary Mark Rutte says there is no alternative to the 32 member states spending more defense, given the threat from Russia and the broader international security situation. Leaders of NATO are now set to commit to spending 5% of national output on defense and related infrastructure. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz describes the meeting as historic, while today's main session is scheduled to last only 2.5 hours, with a final statement expected to endorse a spending pledge of 3.5% of member nations' GDP on defense and a future 1.5% on defense-related expenditure. Well, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has described the target as unreasonable, and on the sidelines, President Trump's mediation efforts on the Israel-Iran conflict was commended. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom emphasized the need for the ceasefire brokered to be obeyed by both nations.
I've been asking them to go up to 5% for a number of years, and they're going up to 5%, and that's a big, from 2%. And a lot of people didn't even pay the 2%. So I think that's going to be very big news. NATO is going to become very strong with us, and I appreciate doing it. Perhaps you want to talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me first, before I go to the spending, I just want to recognize your decisive action on Iran.
Thank you.
You are a man of strength, but you're also a man of peace. And the fact that you are now also successful in getting this ceasefire done between Israel and Iran, I really want to commend you for that.
Thank you very much.
And I think this is important for the whole world. Then on spending, it's absolutely true. I want to state here, without President Trump, this would not have happened.
We saw a ceasefire. That is a good thing for the region and more widely. We need to maintain that ceasefire, and I think it's very important this NATO summit that we all work together to make sure that we do, because that ceasefire creates the space for what needs to happen next, which is the negotiations to ensure that Iran does not have the capability to develop nuclear weapons. That is what's at issue here. So I want to see that ceasefire maintained, and we will work with others, including, of course, the US, to ensure that that's the position.
And our global affairs analyst, Colin Sui, joins me now from Brussels, Belgium, to give his perspectives on these issues. Good to have you on the news at this time. So talking about Israel and Iran conflict, we understand historically now ceasefires in the Middle East often collapse within days or perhaps even weeks. But what structural or diplomatic mechanisms now do you think would be necessary to make this one last a bit longer?
Thank you, Esther, for having me. Obviously, we've seen the shaky ground on which the announced ceasefire stood less than 24 hours after Donald Trump had, made the pronouncements. Some of us expressed cautious optimism by saying, okay, it is natural for Israel to second the words of the United States of America, but let us wait and see what Iran will do. And, just before we could, close our mouth, expressing those cautious optimism, the bombing from both sides actually continued. Now, it is good news that it appears to be holding at least for the last 12 hours. And indeed, like you said, the situation remains precarious. And we can draw that inference, indeed, again, citing you from history. Now, what diplomatic effort has to be made? Well, obviously, the world is served right when there is peace. And so, on both sides of the divide, they do have, their allies, because we have been seeing more and more some sort of alignment, not even realignment, alignment on both sides. And so, diplomatically, because ultimately, after the guns, when the guns have gone silent, it is diplomacy that actually takes over. And it is never too early for that diplomacy to take over. And so, the different, aligning groups now have the responsibility, as a matter of fact, the obligation to now, continue to press on, their friends, depending on which side you are, the Iranian side or the Israeli side, to please keep the peace, keep the ceasefire. And so through such a diplomatic, overtures and pressure, at least from their friends, I believe that it may be sustained.
Well, looking at that optimism, let's also remember that earlier on, President Trump bluntly criticized both sides, particularly Israel, which happens to be its ally, accusing it of violating the truce immediately after the ceasefire was announced. But what message now do you think this sends to both its allies and adversaries, the strong message, the criticisms that President Trump released earlier on today?
I think it's important to give this to President Trump. Yes, he talked tough, he showed strength and impartiality, as a matter of fact, in condemning not just Iran, but as a matter of fact, even more condemnation was directed by him to Israel. Now, has that got anything to do with the fact that the ceasefire has been sustained for more than 10 hours? Obviously, yes, because he was not only speaking, he was also, he took to social media to actually send very, very strong message to Israel. For instance, in one of his messages, he told Israel to drop the bomb. Do not fire that bomb that we are aware that you are, actually planning to do. And so, Israel had to listen to Trump, because without the United States of America in all of these wars that Israel is prosecuting here and there, they stand nowhere. So yes, the pressure from Trump has in this case worked particularly on Israel. I don't know about, it working on Iran, but Iran has been clear they have been clear about the fact that we will only retaliate when we are attacked. And so the attack stopping from Israel has also, made a round to, respect the terms of the ceasefire.
And finally, before I let you go, we understand the NATO summit now coincides with these events. But how might the United States allies in Europe respond to the growing instability and Trump's handling of it?
They have chosen, the Europeans, they have chosen the path of massaging Donald Trump's ego. But in doing that, characteristics of European matured diplomatic, ways, they have also looked at what is in it for Europe. And for Europe, the most important thing here is their long-term defense capabilities. Now, when you see that Europe has, decided to scale up their defense spending to 5%, which is something that Donald Trump has always, told them that they have to do, and to also, align more with Canada in terms of, doing more of the heavy lifting. On the face of it, it will look like, Donald Trump has succeeded in intimidating Europe to do exactly what he wanted. But far from it, Europe is thinking more of independent defense infrastructure for Europe. And so working towards that 5% is in Europe's best interest, as opposed to, dancing to the tune of Donald Trump. But ultimately, this is good. This is good for both sides, because now they have Trump on their side, and the respect for Article 5, which means when you attack one, you attack others, will then be upheld.
All right, and that's a fine place to leave it. Thank you so much, Colin Sui, Global Affairs Analyst. We appreciate your insights on the news at this time.
Thank you very much, Esther, for having me.
All right, let's quickly go on a short break and return in just a moment. Stay with us.